All right. Any questions before we get started? Anything in your minds? No? Okay. Moving on to a new topic today, finding stuff, which is something that every kid learned from the earliest age, which is, of course, finders keepers. But today I think we'll find that the rule is not quite so simple. Okay. So let's start with a poll question. And I want to just use this to bridge our class from the last one until this one. So let's take a look at poll question number 1. Okay. It's a simple question, but I want it has a very important purpose. The first question is this. Armory versus Delamirie applied which of the following doctrines? A, acquisition by discovery. B, acquisition by capture. C, acquisition by find. Or D, acquisition by, I'm sorry, D, all the above. Sorry, I got into a pattern there. Okay. All right. I think I just spent everyone there. Who am I up to next? Who's next? Alexandra, is that you? Oh, sorry, Alexandra. Sorry, my sister's name is Alexandra, so I will call you that by default, but I apologize.
Oh, it's fine.
What'd you put here?
Acquisition by find.
Okay. Why did you not put D?
My thought process was that he didn't discover it. It belonged to somebody else before him. So he wasn't technically the first owner of the stone.
Well, why didn't I capture?
I guess looking at it now, it could be.
Okay. Is that Grant? You here, Grant?
Yes, sir.
Grant, what'd you put here?
Acquisition by find.
Okay. Now, why is this not acquisition by capture?
Well, that usually refers to something like a wild animal or the legal equivalent like loyal or something like that, something that moves, something that's part of the natural world that hasn't yet been tamed.
Absolutely right. Go ahead. Go on. Continue.
Whereas we're talking about a piece of jewelry here that obviously had a previous owner.
Okay. Thank you so much. That's exactly right, Grant. Thank you. The answer here is C, but I want you all to explain why the answer is C. It's not enough to know what these rules are. You have to know when they apply. Okay, what do I mean by that? Our first week of class, we did the acquisition by discovery doctrine. That doctrine applies to newly discovered land that no one's ever seen before, or at least no civilized person, to use the language of the cases, has seen before, right? The discovery doctrine is about finding new territory, new land. The capture doctrine is what we use for the fugitive resources, the wild animals. Okay? You only use capture when we're talking about oil, minerals, whales, foxes, ducks, baseballs, apparently, right? The capture doctrine is for wild animals in nature, resources in nature that are not tamed. Okay? The topic today, acquisition by find, is different. All right? With acquisition by find, we're talking about things that were lost or mislaid. Excuse me. Things where there was a prior owner, right? A piece of jewelry was owned by someone. A pocketbook full of money was owned by someone, right? A boat was owned by someone. A ring was owned by someone. These are not things found in nature. So I'm asking you very clearly, when you get to your exam and you have a fact pattern with a lost item, do not give me rule of capture. Is it a lost piece of jewelry or some sort of lost chattel? I don't want to hear about the rule of capture. About 10 of you will do this in the exam. It's without fail every year. So I'm giving you a very clear warning. I'm telling you the answer. If it's about an animal, right? Do not give me, is it lost or mislaid? Right? Do not give me Armory or Hanafi Peel. If I'm discovering territory, do not give me Pearson v. Post. Give me Johnson. Don't give me, it's like a mislaid property. So again, the discovery doctrines for land, the capture doctrine is for wild resources, fugitive resources, animals, and the find doctrines for mislaid or misplaced or lost property. Okay, about a third of you got this wrong. So this is not easy. Maybe it's easy, but a third of you got this wrong. So I'm putting you on notice. This is something that you need to just remember. Okay? Questions on that? No? Okay. I see no questions, and I will move on. Let's try question number 2. Again, this seems like a very simple question, but it's going to build to question 3, which is a little trickier. Question 2. A loses his watch. B finds it. A sues B for recovery of the watch. Who has a stronger claim to the watch? This one should be very easy. Should be 100%. But we'll see. Okay. And this will be for Harrison in about 15 seconds. All right, Harrison, I'm going to stop it in 2. Well, people get their answers in quicker. You're taking way too long. I don't want a full minute for each of these questions. We'll never finish. These are A or B questions. All right, Harrison, what's your answer here?
A.
Okay, why'd you put A?
From the Armory case, they say the title of the finder is good against the whole world but the true owner. So the true owner of the watch would have the ultimate claim to the watch.
Excellent. So finders keepers is not the rule?
No. Correct. No. That rule would only apply if it wasn't with the true owner.
Okay. Excellent. Okay, very good. So the answer here is A. About 90% of you got this right, which is good. But a couple of you got it wrong, and I'll explain why. When we're dealing with lost property, the original owner will always have a stronger claim than the finder, right? The original owner, that's the person who lost the watch or lost the jewelry, whatever it is, has a stronger claim than the finder. The finder's keeper doctrine only comes in when you have 2 finders. The first person who found it and the second person who found it. But the original owner will always be able to have superior title. I need you to start thinking about property in this regard. Again, property is not some sort of absolute. It describes a series of relationships where you have a watch. A has a stronger claim to the watch than B. It's not that A owns it or B owns it. It's whose claim is stronger. And here the OG, the original owner, has the strongest claim. All right. Questions that one? All right. Let's take a look at question number 3. This one gets a little bit trickier. I promise we'll get to the cases. I want to do this first just so we get the basic doctrine. So here's your question. F1, that is finder number 1. abbreviating. F1 owns a watch and loses it. Okay. F2 finds it. Then F3 steals it from F2. F2 sues. Oh, I'm sorry. I put the wrong one. I'm going to start this one again. It should have been short answer. You're selecting A or B, but that wasn't even the right answer. I'm sorry. I apologize. I want to type in F2 or F3. Who wins here? Just F2 or F3? My apologies. I put the wrong one. F2 sues F3. Who prevails here? F2 or F3? Okay, and this is going to be for, I think, Marissa in about 10 seconds. I think everyone. All right, Marissa, what's your answer here?
My answer is F2.
Okay, why is it F2?
Wait, I think that one's wrong. But
What'd you say?
I think that might be wrong. I was just looking over my notes, but because the property was stolen, so it was not rightfully obtained.
What is the rule we get from our cases today?
That whoever finds the chattel has superior title to it, except for the original owner.
Okay, and what about theft? How does theft play into that?
Well, theft plays into it. Oh, well, in our second case, they say that if it was left there, then if it's mislaid, then they don't have superior ownership to it because it was purposefully left there instead of just being left. So it's not something to be found.
Okay, Elena, are you here? Elena,
Yes,
what'd you put here?
I put F2
Okay, why'd you put F2?
because it looks like he has a higher level of claim to the watch than F3 because he was in prior possession.
That is the right answer. Say it again.
Because F2 had a prior possession than F3.
Okay, very good. Good. Almost all of you got this right. All but two of you got this one right. Very good. Thank you, Elena. The answer is F2. Okay, let me explain to you why. When we're dealing with sort of lost property, we're often going to have a chain where many people lay claim to the same object. Okay, many people lay claim to the same object. How do you sort through who has a better claim? Among subsequent finders, right? F2 found it first and F3 found it second. You go to whoever had it first, prior possessor. Now, I think Marissa said, well, F3 stole it. One of the weird parts of this class is theft is not that troublesome, right? And let me explain to you why. If F2 didn't have it, then F3 can take it from him, right? It's only theft if someone has a right to it, right? If I find something on the street and it's not mine and someone takes it from me, what am I claiming about? It's almost a counterintuitive thought, right? But just the mere fact that you say something's stolen doesn't really resolve the issue. Okay? Questions on that, on question number 3? All right, let's try question number 4, everybody. And these should take a little bit less time because you already know the setup. Question number 4. Again, F1 owns a watch and loses it. F2 finds it. F3 steals it from F2. Then F1 sues F3. Again, F1 sues F3. Who prevails here? Okay. So I got a slightly new camera setup. So I'm still trying to figure out the right way of lining it up. So I appreciate you. I put a lot of thought into these things. Zoom University. All right. Who's next? I think is that Stephanie next?
I think I'm next.
All right, Stephanie, help me out here. What's your answer?
I said F1.
Okay, tell me why F1 wins.
So my thinking was F1 wouldn't win if F2 had already recovered for it, or I don't know what, my thinking was a little bit convoluted to get there, but basically F1 has superior title as the original owner here. That was my thinking.
Who always has the superior title? What did we say a minute ago? I think that was Harrison.
The true owner.
Always has. Who's the true owner here?
F1.
So what's the answer?
F1.
Okay, very good. Thank you so much, Stephanie. Do you have Steph or Stephanie? How do you go by?
Steph.
Okay, I'll try to remember that. It's different on my roster and on the Zoom. Okay. All right, Steph, thank you so much. All right. So Steph is correct. The answer is F1. Remember, in these sorts of cases, the true owner, the original owner, always, and I mean always, has the strongest claim. Right? So let's just say, I lost a packet of money on the floor of a barber shop and I came back 5 years later. I'd say, okay, where's my money? I am still the stronger claim, even though all this other stuff happened in the meantime. Everyone with me? Question to number 4. All right, let's do one more, and this one should be one. Let's try and get 100% right in this one. See if we can do it. That was 97%, so you guys are pretty close with that question. Question number 5. Here we go. F1 owns a watch and loses it. F2 finds it. F3 steals it. F1 sues F2. Who will prevail? And this is going to be for Derek in about 20 seconds. Okay. All right, 5 more seconds. All right, I'm going to stop it here. All right, Derek, what's your answer? Tell me why. Oh, I see what you said. You said because F2 no longer has it, he can't give it back.
We can't give it back.
Thanks for that, Derek. So actually, I think you may have hacked the question, so to speak, because he's actually right about that part. Let me just repeat what it is. I think I need to rewrite the question, right? And let me explain why. I actually got this question from the book. If you go to page 55 in your book, it's right there. Hold on, let me just bring it up. If you go to page 55, it's right there. See where it says notes and questions? So these are actually straight from the book. But I think actually that's a really good point. So let me just give the answer I was going to give, but then we have to tweak the question later. In any dispute between F1 and F2, F1 wins, right? Because F1's the original finder. But Derek makes a fair point. How is F2 even at issue here? Because F3 has it. So you know what? I'm giving credit for both of them. Excellent. Good job. 1 second, Derek. And I'm going to just rewrite the question for my next section, which is always helpful. And I'm just going to delete this last part about F3 stealing it. Because if I delete that last part, then it's F2, right? Yeah. That was very good. Okay, Derek A. In 1 second. Let me just rewrite the question so I don't forget for my next class. Okay, Derek A. Go ahead.
My question just deals with would it also depend on what type of action they were?
I know. I tried to keep it simple, which is why I got myself in trouble. If it was to recover the actual item, then of course, if F2 doesn't have the watch, he can't give it back.
Right, and then if it was like the trover, then
right.
Potentially, okay.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna have to tweak this question for the next section, because it's what do you call it? It actually complicates it having the F3 steals it. Let me drop it. Okay, but thanks, Derek. Both Derek. Thank you. All right. Questions in that one? I'm going to send a note to the editor of the book about this later, but very often it's crazy. I've been giving this question now for almost I don't know how many years, and no one's ever come up with that before, which is good. Okay. All right. What else? All right. One more question. They promised we'll actually do some cases. This is very, I think, helpful, though, because I think most of you now grasp the idea of the relationship between A and B. Okay? Who added first? Who added second? All right. So let's try one more question. I'm calling it question number 6. Armory adopted the rule of finders keepers. And this, I think, is a good place to start. Okay, and this is going to be for Samantha in about 10 seconds. Okay, Samantha, you here?
Yes.
Okay, a lot of people haven't put their answers in. I'm not sure what's going on here. I'll bet 20-something of you. All right, Samantha, what's your answer here?
I put no.
Okay. Tell me, if you can remember best as you can from when you were a kid, what is finders keepers?
Basically, whatever you find is yours to keep.
Whatever you find is yours to keep. Let me ask you a follow-up question, please, Samantha. Finders keepers is whatever you find you keep. Does that include taking it from someone?
No.
Why not?
Because then it kind of loses the whole point of finders.
Well, okay. So you're getting to my next question, right? What does it mean to find something?
How do I say it without saying you find something?
I know, that's exactly what I'm asking. This is like, what does it mean to capture? My question is basically, how do we define capture without using the word capture? Here, my question is something similar. How do you define the word find without using the word find? What does it mean to find something?
You see something.
See it just with your eyes, that's enough? If I see something on the floor, it's mine?
I guess you would have to see it and take into your possession.
So see it and take it.
Yes, but there is like no one around to claim that it's theirs at that moment.
Okay, I think we'll get closer. John, you here, John?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll ask you the same question I gave to Samantha. How do you define finders?
So find without using find, I would say come across something that is not currently reasonably possessed by a person and to take possession of it.
Not
something that,
I'll just repeat. I'll make sure I got what you said. You said not currently reasonably possessed. Is that what you said?
right. Like
not currently reasonably
I would
possessed.
say it could be claimed equally by anyone. At
So if I were to, leave my laptop on the desk in your classroom, I'd go to the bathroom for 2 minutes and I'd come back. Could you say, finders keepers, it's my laptop?
Well, I wouldn't say I'd keep it, but I would say, hey, I found your laptop on this table. I didn't know you were in the bathroom or something like that. You know?
Yeah, but was
I
it
wouldn't say
currently
that.
reasonably possessed? I'm just trying to use your words you just gave me.
Was it currently, yeah, it was probably a bad move leaving your laptop when you went to the bathroom, but no, I mean, it wouldn't make it.
God, I don't want to be your classmate. I'm in trouble.
It wouldn't make it mine, but
I'm in trouble if you're in my classroom. Okay, good. We're on Zoom, I suppose. Matt H, you here?
Yes, sir.
Matt, let's move on to the facts of the first case, Armory versus Delamirie. We have this chimney sweep, right? He says he found a jewel, a very expensive jewel. How do you think he understood the word find?
I'm so sure because what from what I understood is that chimney sweeps stick to the chimneys. So if it's at the bottom of the chimney, or I don't know if they go into the person's house, but
Oh, wait a minute. What are you suggesting, Matthew? Are you insinuating that poor Master Armory may have done something improper? Is that what you're saying?
possibly.
Oh, what do you think he did here? Be
I think
honest.
he might have stolen the jewel from the owner of the house.
He might have stolen it. I think I gave this question to Samantha a minute ago. Does finders keepers apply when you steal something?
Well, if you're in possession of it, no. But I mean, if nobody's around, I guess. And
Let me ask the question one more time, a different way, Matthew.
Okay.
Who's the only person that could claim theft in this case?
It would be the owner of
Good.
the house and subsequently the jewel.
Good. Okay, thank you, Matthew. I want you to remove the concept of theft from your brains for this class, right? You've all studied crim law, right? You've all studied torts, a trespass of chattels, right? Remove that from your vocabulary for this class. I am not concerned here with the original owner bringing forward a claim of theft. I think there's a very good chance that the boys stole the jewel from the house. I mean, we don't know, but look, these were very poor kids, right? They were put in very very dangerous situations. I mean, there's a note in the case afterwards, but the reason why young boys were picked as chimney sweeps is that they were small. They had to sort of shimmy up these very narrow smokestacks to clean out all the soot. I mean, today we use machines to do it, but back in the day, you needed to have little boys, and they would very often get stuck. I mean, it's just grotesque. They would have basically, imagine shimmying up a very narrow path, and if you get your knees stuck too high, you get stuck. And you can't remove them, right? Unless you break apart the entire wall, which you often can. They would often have to basically take a rope and try and tug the boys down. They would often went up there naked so they wouldn't get stuck with their clothes. And they would often suffocate and die and asphyxiate in there. This was an awful profession, you see Mary Poppins, right? No, Dick Van Dyke was not a chimney sweep, or Lin-Manuel Miranda, the new version. This was not a chimney sweep there. But here, he probably stole it. The court doesn't even mention that. And that's not because the court's stupid, right? This is the highest court in England. They know what's going on here. But what they recognize is, well, it doesn't matter, right? Because this is not a conflict between Armory and the original owner. This is a conflict between Armory and the jeweler, the goldsmith. And when you have a claim between two subsequent finders, it doesn't matter how F1 got it, right? So Armory is F1 and the goldsmith is F2. Think of it that way, right? It doesn't matter how F1 got it. All that matters is F1 has a stronger claim than F2. Right? Because think about it. The boy stole it from some wealthy family, and then the goldsmith stole it from the boy. They were both stealers, right? And you can imagine, right, that if you were the goldsmith, you're like, oh, come on, there's this little boy who stole a jewel. Who's he going to do? Call the police on me? He stole it himself, right? It's like going to a pawn shop to try and pawn something you stole, and then the pawn shop person steals it from you. What are you going to do? Call the cops on me? You yourself are a thief, which is probably what happened here. All right. Simran, you here?
Yes.
All right. So Walk me through the court's finders analysis. Again, this is the shortest case of the year by far. I mean, it was like a page long. It's a real short case. How does the court approach? I'll get to the agency issue and the damages issue later, but how does the court approach the finder issue?
They say like the finder has the higher claim, except for the actual owner.
Good.
The superior claim.
Okay, very good. And it's a very, very famous rule. I'll give it to you. Thank you, Samara. I'll give you the rule that's adopted. It's a very famous rule, but let me just write this down so you have it clear in your notes. The title of the finder is good as against the whole world, but the true owner. The title of the finder is good as against the whole world, but the true owner. Okay. What does that mean, Bennett? That rule I just gave you.
I think that rule means that if we're deciding who has a better title between two people who stole something or who obtained possession through theft, that the...
Well, it doesn't have to be theft. It could just be actual honest finding. You just found something sitting on the floor, right? So don't, again, remember I said, don't think about theft in this class. It's actually not important. So try it again. Start from the beginning.
Okay, so whoever has superior title, the person who found that chattel first has superior title over the subsequent possessor unless
Good.
That person who is suing is the original owner of the chattel.
Yeah, very good. So the original owner always has the strongest claim, right? 100%. But F1 will beat F2, and F2 will beat F3, and F3 will beat F4. You can imagine on an exam, and I've done this before, I have like 4 or 5 people in a chain, and you have to just figure out who's in the hierarchy, right? Who comes first? Where it's not always clear who's first, but you can stack them like this, right? I want to just flag 2 issues, though. It isn't always going to be clear who the original owner is or who the true owner is, right? And this is where these questions get messy. What if there's a dispute over who the original owner is, right? Let's say 2 people say they both inherited property and only one of them is correct, right? Let's say they inherited a cow or something, right? But it's unclear who is actually the rightful heir. So you can, with these questions, it isn't always even clear who is on top of the chain, right? What if 2 people claim to find something at the same time? One sees it with his eyes and a second picks it up, right? Who actually is the finder? And this is where students usually talk about the rule of capture. That's where I trick them at this exact point. So I'm giving you fair warning, right? They sort of confuse what it means to capture versus find. Unfortunately, finding something isn't as clearly defined as rule of capture. It's rare, but you're going to have sometimes conflicts where courts have to decide who finds something first. Is it just enough to see it with your eyes, or do you have to pick it up? I suspect the better answer is just laying eyes on something will not be as good as putting your hand on it. But you're going to have to see how the facts shake out. All right, so questions for the rule's really simple in this case. So Armory F1 has a stronger claim than Delamirie F2, the goldsmith, right? And also, I think here the court felt bad for the little boy, right? He kind of got screwed by the goldsmith. Just pause for a second. This was a King's Bench case, which was like the highest court in England. How is it that a young chimney sweep, is able to litigate a case all the way to King's Bench? My theory, which is worth nothing, is that probably had some wealthy benefactor helping him who felt bad for him, right? That this goldsmith took advantage of him. Where was the original owner who who had the jewels stolen from him? Probably didn't care, right? We don't know for sure. And by the way, King's Bench, you'll see Queen's Bench. Why is it sometimes king, sometimes queen? Whoever the monarch is. When the current monarch's a king, it's called King's Bench. When the current monarch is a queen, it's called the Queen's Bench. So currently we have Queen Elizabeth, who's been on the throne for like ever, half a century, even more. It's Queen's Bench. And after she's not on the throne anymore, it'll be the King's Bench with Harry or William, whoever it is. Charles. I don't care much for the monarchy. It's not my thing anymore. Okay. All right. Questions on Armory. Okay. The other two parts I'm not so concerned about, one of which is one of agency. The goldsmith's apprentice actually took the jewel from him, but under, the respondeat superior doctrine, that from torts, the agent and the agent's responsible. I'm sorry, the superior is responsible for the act of the agent. So that's a pretty straightforward doctrine. The third one's actually kind of funny with the damages, right? Because the jewel is missing, they didn't know how much to assess for damages. So the court said, we'll just presume that the most expensive jewel imaginable that could fit inside this socket, inside this setting, that's what you have, and that's what we'll put the damages at. Because I'm almost positive Delamirie had sold it, didn't even have it to give it back if he wanted to. So in the end, Armory was given damages. I have no idea how we spent that money, but hope we spent it well, because it was for a lot of money for a chimney sweep. All right. Questions in the first case, Armory. Very short case, but very fun to read because it's so short. You're done with it in like a couple minutes. Yeah, Bennett, go ahead.
Do you think the court awarded the damages for the nicest jewel because they want to make sure that behavior is not tolerated, or they want sort of like even a punitive damages award?
Really good point. Yeah, I think it's a fair point. I think they're trying to set a signal to the jewelsmiths of the town, to the goldsmith, like, don't do this, right? If someone comes to you with a stolen jewel, bring it to the police. Don't try and make a profit off of it, because we're going to screw you with damages. Yeah, I think you can almost analogize the finest water, they said, right? The finest water, you think of like, the clearest diamond, right? To almost a punitive damage award. I think that's a fair way of looking at it. Good point. What else? Anything? All right. Thank you, Bennett. All right. Let me give you some terminology that you may not be familiar with. I'll just put it at the top of the document here. So there's a term you need to know called bailment. Okay, what is a bailment? A bailment is when you entrust your goods to another. Angelina, yes?
I was just going to answer your question.
Oh, I'll call on you maybe a minute, I promise.
Oh, no, you're fine.
Okay. I think you're also close on the queue also. I'll probably get you in a few minutes as well. All right. A bailment is when you entrust your goods to someone else. So a very easy example is valet parking, right? And you go give your key, or at least when you used to, we had in human interaction. But in the past, you'd give your keys to someone, and you'd say, "Here's my keys. Please hold on to my car while I have dinner. And then when I'm done with dinner, give me my keys back." You don't expect the valet driver to go take a joyride like Ferris Bueller or something. If you've ever seen the movie, right? You expect him to put your car in a lot, keep it safe, and then bring it back to you when you're done. Or maybe another example of a bailment is a dry cleaner, right? Or laundromat. You give your clothes to a cleaner and expect them to hold on to your clothes, clean it for you, and then when they're done, hold on to it, and then you come pick it up a couple of days later, right? It's almost like a duty of care, right? You're not giving the keys as a gift. You're not giving the clothes as a permanent transfer. You're saying, here, hold on to this for a period of time and don't screw it up, okay? The concept of bailment is very common with lost items. Because one way of thinking about a bailment is that, let's say I drop a package of money in a store, right? I would expect the shop owner to hold on to it for me to return, right? If I drop my pocketbook or my purse or a wallet in a store, I would expect, I hope, that there's a lost and found, right? And the owner of the shop will hold on to it and have a duty of care. I don't expect him to start spending my money. I don't expect him to, to sell off my bag. Just hold on to it. All right, that makes sense. I think that basically makes sense. So there's two types of people involved in the situation. The bailor and the bailee. The bailor and the bailee. Okay. But I want you to focus on the last two letters of these phrases, bailor and bailee. Okay? The bailor is a person who gives the bailment, right? I am giving you my keys. I am giving you my valet my keys for valet parking. I'm giving you my clothes for the dry cleaners, right? The bailee is a person who receives the bailment. Okay, right? The valet driver is a bailee. The dry cleaner is a bailee, right? How do you remember this? And I'll give you a trick which I learned in law school, and I swear it sticks to my head, so maybe it'll work for you. Whenever you see a word ends with EE, it's person receiving something, right? When it ends in OR, it's a person giving something. How do you remember the difference? Because people confuse it every year. The way I remember it is when I see EE, I think of like me, give it to me. I'm giving it, I'm receiving it, right? EE is receiving, so the bailee is receiving it, but the bailor is giving it. So we see the EE, it's receiver, and OR is the giver. We'll do a bunch of these. You'll do grantee, grantor, you'll do transferee, transferor, you'll do mortgagee, mortgagor. This semester we'll have a lot of these, right? And if you just remember that rule, it'll help you just get a general gist of where things are. Okay? All right. So again, the bailment concept is when you have some sort of lost property in a store, you presume that there's a duty of care by the shopkeep. Catherine H., you here? Catherine? No? Oni, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, Oni, let me ask you a question, please. Have you ever left something in a store by accident?
I have actually.
Yeah, me too. And generally, this will sound like a stupid question. There's a follow-up. If you leave something in a store, what do you do once you realize you left it in the store?
I call the store and see if they know where the item is that I left.
Okay, good. Now let's say you're more like me and you don't remember where you left something, right? You say, okay, I know I had this when I went to the mall, but when I got home from the mall, I didn't have it. And you went all over the mall. You went to every shop. You went to the food court. You went to the bathroom. You went everywhere, right? What do you try to do at that point?
Well, the situation that I did have, I tried to call authorities and see if anybody had turned anything into the police station or the central office of the area and see if anyone turned anything there.
All right. Let me give you one more question. Let's say you went on a trip, to Dallas, right, for a couple of days. When you were in Houston, you had something, and when you got back to Houston after a trip to Dallas, you don't have it, and you have no idea when you last saw it, right? You're like me, you have no idea when you last saw it. What do you do at that point?
At that point, I probably kind of just chalk it up and say that I lost.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So what am I trying to get across here? Why am I starting with just losing it? You're in a store versus you're in a city, you know where you were. Well, why does that matter?
I think it's kind of a level of certainty. So in regards to losing something in the store, it's easier for you to pinpoint where you might have left it. But if you lose something within the city, it's harder for you to say oh, you lost it, let's say in a restaurant in Dallas versus a store in Dallas or somebody's Uber in Dallas.
Yeah. Very good. Excellent. Thank you, Oni. All right. So this is the idea of lost versus mislaid property, right? And this comes up in the last case, but I just want to mention it here because I think it's helpful to think about. Once I remember I was at the airport. I was getting some dinner at a restaurant. I remember I paid for my food with my credit card. I swiped a thing, and then I was waiting for them to give me my receipt. I think I put the card down for a second, and I checked my phone or something, and then I got my food and I walked away. I left the credit card there, right? I knew exactly where I left it, right? Because I remember I paid for dinner at that restaurant. Turned out the clerk took my card and spent some money at Walmart, which is how things go sometimes, right? But that's not important, right? I got refunded. But I knew where I'd left it, so I was able to call up that store and say, hey, I left my card there. And the manager's like, we don't have it. So that's how I knew it was stolen, right? Whereas, let's say I walked around the entire mall and, a credit card fell out of my pocket on the floor somewhere. Or let's say I just had it in my pocket and just sat down and it fell out and I didn't know. I'd have no idea where to look for it. Okay, why does that matter? Where am I more likely to go to find it? Where I know the store I left it? Or in an entire city like Dallas where I have no idea where it is? The law tries to encourage people to keep stuff where it's likely to be found, right? Where if I put my credit card on the table at a restaurant to swipe to pay my dinner, and I forgot it was there, I'll know, okay, I went to pay for dinner, I forgot it. Versus if I was in Dallas, I dropped my credit card on the floor on a bus somewhere, who the hell knows where it is, right? This is a sort of distinction between when you have lost and mislaid property. The law tries to reward it. If I left my credit card at a restaurant on a table, I would say at that point, the shop owner, the manager was a bailee. He didn't know it, but he was, right? He has my property, and he has an expectation to hold it in good care and duty of good care, and not start spending all my money at Walmart like the guy actually did. I don't think he was a manager. I think it was just the employee at the counter. I got to go, why am I buying gas at Walmart at 11 o'clock at night? That's not me. Then I realized my credit card was missing. But you become basically a bailee, right? If I drop money on the floor of a store, I would probably think to go check with the clerk of the store. All right. What happens when it's not money in a store? What happens when it's some sort of jewelry that's buried, deep in the ground? It's been there for God knows how many years. Can we even find the original owner? Is it even possible? Can we even track down the descendants of the heirs of the 2,000-year-old boat? And if so, is there any sort of bailment issue? Why are we giving it to the owner of the property? Okay, so these are the high-level issues, right? There's one school of thought that says whoever finds it first, F1 wins it. And there's another school of thought that says, well, we want to encourage the original owner to come back and sort of reclaim it, so we let the shopkeep hold on to it. And there's another school of thought that says, well, it doesn't matter whether people might come back to retrieve it. It's whoever owns the property owns the item. So it's almost these three different theories of finders doctrine, which are very much in tension, right? It's very much in tension with each other. And students are going to ask, Josh, what's the right rule? And I'm going to say, yes, all the above. Because unfortunately, I know you hate that, don't you? Because unfortunately, and I think the Hannah versus Peel case illustrates this fact, the doctrines are not happy, right? They sort of unhappily mix together. So yes, you have to know all the above rules. All right. Who's next? I just called on you. Nicholas not here. Raymond, are you here, Raymond?
Yes, I am.
All right, Raymond, let's start simple and do the facts in Hannah against Peel. This is not an easy case, and I encourage you after class to go back to read the case summary I put online. This case is a mess. Are you in a dark classroom? Is that where you are?
Yeah, it is kind of dark in here.
Is anyone else here or just you?
No, no one's else here.
Which room number is that? It's actually might need to know this.
516.
516. So I was able to set up something for my other section where they're all in the same class together watching me on Zoom. And I'm trying to do something similar for your class. It's logistically a nightmare. So just a show of hands. How many of you are actually in the building now? Virtual hands. I can't. Yeah. Thank you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, actually, about a bunch of you. Would it be useful to those with their hands up to watch me in the same room? That is, I'm on the screen, use a classroom microphones, and use the classroom, computer. Would that same hands? Okay, could you guys just email me after class? Some people are saying no. Okay, you don't have to, you're not required to. Could you guys just pull together and email me after class just to know who you are, and I'll try and set something up for you for next week or maybe even for Wednesday, because it took a little bit of logistical work for my C2 section, but I can do it for you guys as well. Okay, thank you. All right, all hands down, or everything. All right, Raymond, go ahead, please. Give me the facts in Johnson. Hannah, wrong case.
Okay, so the dependent is the owner of a house or estate, and it's being used to quarter soldiers. And the plaintiff is one of the soldiers that's living in the house, or he might be the only one. But there's people who are living there, and then they moved out, and then the plaintiff moves in, and he's like adjusting the curtains on a window, and he finds something like covered in dust and almost attached to covered in cobwebs and dirt, and it's like a brooch of value.
What's a brooch? Just, people may know what a brooch is. What's a brooch?
I think it's like a pin that has like maybe a jewel in it.
It's like a decorative piece of jewelry you put on as like a little pin. You wear it like on your shirt or something. All right, thanks. All right, go on, Raymond.
So he finds it, and he hands it over to the police or like his superiors.
Does he hand it over right away? Does he hand it over right away?
I think he talked to his supervisor maybe and was like, what should I do about this?
Yeah, but did he hold on to it for a bit first?
I'm guessing so.
Yeah, he did. He did. Yeah, thanks, Raymond. Yeah, the fact's a little bit vague, but it seems that he held on for a couple months, and his wife maybe talked to him about it, and then they said, all right, go talk to your boss. He might have just said, screw it, finders keepers. And if he never said anything, it would have been his. No one would ever have known. All right, thanks, Raymond. I appreciate that. All right, so then what happens is he turns to the police. The police hold on to it for some time. No one claims it because who knows? By the way, this is in the 1940s. World War II is raging throughout Europe, and it always strikes me, why are these people fighting over a stupid brooch in the middle of the war? Right? Is there nothing better for these people to do right now than to fight over the stupid brooch? I can never get over this case. Every year I teach it. Is there nothing better in your minds right now than fighting over? Anyway. The police give it to Major Peel, the owner of the house. Peel had no knowledge that this brooch even existed. And by the way, this brooch was not cheap. It's, it says 66 pounds. That's like $4,000. It's a non-trivial amount of money. I did the conversion the other day. Peel sold it, so he didn't have it anymore. Hannah sued Peel to recover the brooch, or what he really wanted was the value of the brooch. He would take either, but he probably wanted the money more so. Or maybe he wanted the brooch. Maybe it was very pretty. Okay. Now, that was Raymond. Matthew, here?
Yes, sir.
Matthew, why is this case so difficult for the court? This case, this is a difficult case for the court here.
Well, it was difficult for me to read also.
Yeah.
Because they cite like 3 or 4 other cases in
yeah.
it. And I just think that the rule of finders keepers is just so broad that there's not one rule that you can actually have for a typical kind of find.
Okay. So thanks, Matthew. Very good.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this is sort of a case within a case within a case. Students hate this case because it's not just one case; it's 5 cases. And guess what, guys? You need to know all 5 cases, right? All 5. So it's 5 cases in one. Unfortunately, now you already did one of them, Armory, right? So it's not as bad, but you need to know all these cases. What makes it so complicated is that the actual court's decision doesn't really reconcile all 4 or 5 cases. They sort of say, well, I'm going to pick this one. All right. It doesn't really say why. Matthew, go ahead.
The way I kind of saw it was that they're kind of adding layers to Armory.
Right. And this is kind of, I like the way you put layers. I like the way you put it, Matthew. The common law process is sequential, right? It's you have a very simple rule, and then you make it a little more complicated. Then you create an exception to that complicated rule, and then you create another exception, and you create another layer, right? So you sort of just build one on top of the other. And that's how common law works over the course of centuries. All right, so let's just walk through one case at a time, right? And I'll do the first one because we already did it. First case is Armory, right? In Armory, you have the chimney sweep and the goldsmith, and the court says that the chimney sweep was the first finder, and the finder of the brooch has the strongest claim against everyone but the rightful owner. All right. Right, so Hannah likes Armory. Hannah's like, look, I'm just like this chimney sweep, right? I found this brooch, so I'm first. Now, James here, James?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
James, how does Armory differ from Hannah in one very important regard? Just one very important distinction between the cases. Where was the jewel found by the chimney sweep?
It was actually I know that in this case the jewel was found in someone else's house. I'm not exactly sure. I don't remember who owned the chimney of the.
Yeah, we don't know. I mean, that's. Let me change the facts, right, James? What would have happened if the chimney sweep was just walking around the goldsmith store and he saw on the floor, buried under some dirt, a piece of gold or a piece of diamond or something?
And he was in someone else's store?
He was in the goldsmith store. Would the case come out the same way?
Not necessarily, because then he would have to return it to the store owner.
But what was the rule in Armory? Did the rule in Armory consider where the thing was found? Did that matter?
No, it didn't matter.
No. So,
but
if okay, you just said something different. You said should matter. Why should it matter?
Because it's kind of adding context to it. Because if I go to someone's house and I find your, phone that you lost years and years ago, and you're like, all right, it's mine now.
Yeah. All right. So thank you, James. So James is starting to see that the Armory rule was a rule for that case, but it may not have had all the context that it needed. All right. Next case. Natasha, you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. The next case is the one that gives us a lot of difficulty. Bridges against Hawksworth. What happened there?
So in this case, I believe the plaintiff found banknotes that were dropped in the defendant's shop. And he said to keep them and try to find the owner, like advertising for them. But then when nobody found them, he sued to get them back.
Okay, very good. And what did the court do here in Hawksworth?
They applied the Armory rule. They said that there is no reason not to. It doesn't matter where it was found.
So the first finder gets it, even though it's found in this guy's shop. Okay, thank you, Natasha. And by the way, the amount of money, 65 pounds there, was at $7,000. This was a non-trivial amount. This was a lot of money. By the way, I want to ask for volunteers, but if you find money in a store, do you turn it in or do you keep it? Years ago, I think I was at a burger place in DC, and I found $20 near the register, and I gave it to the person at the register, and I'm almost certain they kept it, but it's on my conscience, so I did. But would you find money? Would you actually give it back to the store manager? So in this case, the court ruled for the finder, Bridges, and they applied the rule in Armory. And the court said it didn't make any legal difference where the money was located. It didn't matter if it was in the store. Now, I need you just to take a step back, right? Today we have, Westlaw, we have Lexis, right? Everything that the court does is recorded in very careful electronic format. But back in the 1800s, the English courts didn't have that sort of system. There was no official reporter of cases. Instead, what would happen is you'd have these private companies, and they would publish their own reports on cases. And very often, they would take the judge's opinions and they would sort of summarize them. Sometimes they would sit in court and they would write down what the judge says, and that would be the summary of the case. It often happened that there'd be two different reports about the same case. People would disagree about what a case says. So we saw this with the duck case as well, right? Keeble versus Hickeringdale. Was that a case about interfering with the trade, or was that about rationing solely? What happens here, it seems, is that a later court perhaps misread an earlier case. Let me say this very clearly. The third case is called, I hate this word, South Staffordshire Water Company versus Sharman. And it seemed that the judge, Lord Russell, in the Sharman case, maybe misread Bridges. It's not entirely clear, but that's what seems to have happened, right? Paul, are you here?
Yes, sir.
How does the judge in the Sharman case read the holding in Bridges?
Well, they read it that the owner of the property has the right to whatever's found on that property.
Okay, very good. Is that what Bridges said?
They never talked about the property, and they said it was like immaterial to it.
So why does this create a problem when you have this later in time court that misreads an earlier decision? Why is that problematic?
You don't have a proper reasoning, so you don't know like why this court chose to do this. So you're flipping the logic of it altogether, and then it makes it difficult to understand.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Paul. It's a mess, right? This is what happens in a common law system where you have misreading of precedent. And we don't know if it was deliberate, maybe it was an accident, maybe he had a bad report or something of the case, but this happened. All right. So we get to Azrael, you here?
Yes, sir.
So Azrael, help me out here. What were the facts then in the Sharman case?
In the Sharman case, there was a pool cleaner.
Good.
That found 2 rings underneath. I guess back then it was the pool had dirt and mud.
Yeah.
So they found them in the mud. And that apparently the pool owners had a right to say how they wanted their pool cleaned, that if they found something in the pool that it wasn't theirs, or that the pool owner should have said how to clean the pool.
Okay, very good. We get this phrase, thank you, Azrael, locus in quo, which is just Latin phrase, which basically means if you own the property, it's yours, right? The rule that they adopted in Sharman is that you have the right to anything that's attached to your land. So if there's something in the soil or in the mud, right, it's yours. That's not the rule from Armory. That's not the rule from Bridges. But that's the rule that's adopted here. Everyone with me? So again, we have this progression, right? Armory only discusses the chimney sweep, finding it wherever. Bridges is where you find the money in some shop, but it still belongs to the finder. Sharman discusses when you find something buried in the ground, it's the owner's property. Then we get to the fourth case. This is for Aaron. The fourth case is, I never say Ellis, I never know, versus Brigg Gas Company, right? What happened here?
I didn't get to that case.
It was the first case we had to read.
Oh, today?
I think it's the second class for you, been unprepared. You want to talk to me after class? Come to office hours, please.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, Emily, go ahead.
So Ellis v. Brigg was a case about land that had been given in demise, and it was a gas company. And they found a boat. They basically found a prehistoric boat in the land. And so there was a dispute about who owns this boat that had been buried in the land.
Good. So who did the court rule for here? Was the person who found the boat or the person who owned the soil?
They said it was the plaintiff, which was in this case, the person who owned the land.
Exactly right. Did it matter who found it? Did it matter the gas company who found it while digging?
No, not in this case, because they were acting in service to the landholder.
Okay. All right. Very good. Thank you so much, Emily. All right. So we have this other precedent, the gas company. And this seems to just be an extension of Charmin, right? Where the boat was literally inside the soil, right? It was buried in the earth, and therefore belonged to the property owner. Now, this was not, a packet of money that was left on the floor a few minutes ago, where you could imagine someone dropped their ring in a pool a couple of years ago. This boat was 2,000 years old, right? No one's finding the heirs who built the boat. It's not going to happen. But they still give it to the owner of the locus in quo, right? That's the phrase, locus in quo. So then we get to the end. Justice Burkett, who's writing for the court, says, these cases are unsatisfactory. But he finds two general rules. Here's the first rule. Okay, ready? A man possesses everything attached to his land. You possess everything attached to your land. That's the first rule. And the second rule, a man does not necessarily possess a thing which is unattached to his land. A man does not necessarily possess a thing unattached to his land. So a package of money on your floor is not attached, but a ring or a boat in the soil is attached. Now that doesn't really make much sense, right? What if I drop my wallet on a pool of mud instead of on a hardwood floor? Does that really make any difference? Right? If I have some quicksand, I don't know, I'm making it up, right? Does that make a difference? So in the end, the court basically says, you know what? Screw it. I like Hawksworth. I'm going to follow that rule. Therefore, I give it to the finder. It goes to Hannah. And I'll tell you, go reread the last paragraph of this case a few times. I've done it many times. There's not really an answer why. He basically says, I like this rule better. I'm going with Bridges. Under the Charmin doctrine or the Briggs Gas doctrine, it would belong to Major Peel because he owned the house. He says, screw it. I'm going to the what do you call it? The Bridges doctrine. So you're asked, Josh, which of these tests we need to know? The answer is all the above. All of them. That's just the answer. I'm sorry. But you see how the cases develop. All right. We spent a lot of time in that case, but I think it's an important one. Questions on Hannah? All right. McAvoy is our last case. And let me just summarize it because we're a little bit short on time. I apologize. I want to finish. In McAvoy, someone left a pocketbook full of money on a table. This is like the credit card example I gave earlier, right? This wasn't just dropped on the floor. Someone was probably sitting at the table at a barbershop, put his wallet down, put his pocketbook down, then he just forgot about it and walked away, right? He probably remembers, yeah, you know what? I put my wallet on the table in the barbershop. Let me go back there and go find it. The court says that this was not lost property. It was mislaid property. All right? This distinction between lost property and mislaid property is significant. Right? Why is it significant? Because when we're dealing with mislaid property, the Armory rule doesn't matter, right? The Bridges v. Hawksworth doctrine doesn't matter. Bridges and Armory only apply when it's lost property. But when it was voluntarily placed or mislaid, as they say, Bridges is not controlling. Okay. Instead, you apply a different doctrine, which is basically the doctrine of bailment. Right? This case doesn't use the word bailment, but that's what's going on here. The court says a shopkeeper has a duty to use reasonable care for the pocketbook. Right? He has a duty to use reasonable care to keep it. Now, what happened to the money in there? Of course, the barber spent it, right? We all know what happened, right? We're talking about probably some substantial amount of money. He spent it. But in theory, the duty belongs to the shopkeeper to hold the money with a reasonable standard of care. It's a bailment. Okay. Questions on McAvoy. I'll summarize in a minute after everything, but questions on McAvoy. Yeah, Azrael. I know these cases are unsatisfactory. They're completely like, what the hell's going on, Josh? Give me a rule I can use, right? Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I guess my question is, so the dispute between McAvoy and the barber, it goes to the barber, but how long must a shop owner keep somebody else's possession until it's reasonable to use it as your own? Or
yeah. Oh, you're Medina, same name as a barber. There we go. There's not a bright line rule if that's what you're asking me for. There isn't one, right? In fact, I don't think there's any guidance, but if for whatever reason at some point the customer were to show up in a couple of years, I think you can make a claim for the money. If the barber spent it, then you can basically sue the barber for breach of his duty to keep the money safe. But the only person who can raise that sort of claim would be the customer who lost the money in the first place.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. I'm sure there's cases, but I don't know how long is reasonable in this case. I think it would have to be if you can prove it was yours, you can come back some years later and raise it. Right? It's not his to spend.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Matthew, go ahead.
I thought there was like a 10-year rule, something about like abandonment or something like that.
Maybe I don't know how the abandonment doctrine interacts with the bailment. I'm not sure how those two doctrines interact, so I'm not sure. But the 10 years sounds like a reasonable amount of time. But I read a case a couple of years ago where someone had lost their college ring. I think it was an A&M and Aggie ring, and they found it like 40, 50 years later, right? And they got it back, and they're all happy, right? Where people find college rings or wedding rings buried in a beach that somehow got to sent to sea. You see these stories in the news every now and then. It's crazy. Yeah, Zach, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just putting up my little thumb because that's what we do in College Station.
Oh God. Okay. Yeah, that's what you do. I know. That's what you do. Thank you. Usually I can see you in class, but I can't see your thumb. So I appreciate the reminder. I don't think I've seen an ag hearing in almost a year since COVID. This has just been it's a very sad year for me. All right.
It's a sad day when you don't see one, Josh.
I know. I don't see people anymore. No, they're not Aggies around. All right, we'll have to have like an Aggie contingency to go around to bring the ring. All right, go to the class notes for a minute. I pasted in what I think is a brief summary as best as I could to summarize these doctrines, although it's not clean. Okay, so here are the cases you guys have to think about. The first is if there's some item, again, this is chattel. This is not for wild animals, so just keep in mind. If there's some chattel that's attached to the ground, it goes to the property owner, the locus in quo. And this is the rule from Sharman, and this is the rule from Briggs. Okay? Now, what happens if it's non-attached to the ground? Well, here we have this distinction between lost and mislaid property. If it's on the floor, that is someone lost it, they fell out of their pocket, they dropped, they don't know where the hell it is. We go into the Bridges case, in which case a finder prevails. Why? Because if it fell out of my pocket, I won't think to go back to the store because I won't know where I dropped it. It's like, you drop your credit card in Dallas somewhere, who the hell knows where it is? But if it's on a table, right? Imagine a checkout counter, right? By the cash register. That's misplaced property. And misplaced property under McAvoy goes to the property owner because it's basically a bailment, right? The idea is that the true owner will be able to retrieve at some point in the future. Okay. Questions? All right. The minute poll is running. Please put your answers in. My office hours are around 2:45 today. Look forward to seeing everyone later. Thank you.